Dreams do come true. It's a question of whether you want to sleep through them or live them. Hello, namaste, and welcome to my channel Pearls in the Ocean. My endeavor is to bring forth people who I have known personally who have dared to dream, break stereotypes, cut through the cliche, and are doing something that gives them a sense of personal satisfaction. They are making a difference in their own unique way. I hope these conversations resonate with you and inspire you to go the extra mile, just like these pearls in the ocean.
Hello, welcome back to Pearls in the Ocean. Today I'm talking to Matangi Jagdish. Matangi she wears multiple hats. She's a playback singer, she's a Coke studio artist, she's a musicpreneur and whatnot. So she does multiple things, and a lot of things in her life are inspiring. Her journey has been inspiring in multiple ways. One of the things that inspired me most is post a situation in her life, an incident in her life where she was at a show and she kind of lost her voice. And thereon she realized certain issues that she had to fix. So one of the things that she had to do was recovering through all this. But the second part of that is how she took on this whole thing of helping other people out who have issues, how people are in the closet and not coming out with their problems due to pain and shame. So she's helping a lot of people in this zone, in this area, and she's doing multiple things out there. So while there are other inspiring things, this is one of the things that touched me most. And let's hear most of this story and other things from her. So let's get talking to Matangi Jagdish. Hi Maja, how are you?
Hi Ranjit, good to see you digitally because I've always seen you physically.
Good to see you too. Thank you for coming to Pearls in the Ocean.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So how was the year 2020 for you?
Well, 2020 has been interesting. It's probably been the only year where I haven't traveled. I can literally count the number of times I've traveled. Literally outside my apartment, I think it'll be less than 10. So I've never been so cooped up for so many months ever before. So I miss the traveling for sure. Looking forward to that in 2021 when it does get safe, of course. And there's been a lot more cooking and cleaning and looking after the house without help, which has not happened before. It's the kind of stuff I don't particularly like. I'm good at it, but I don't like it necessarily. I actually wrote a song about it called Salt in My Kitchen, which was about the early years of me trying to run a home. But yeah, so this year has been interesting in terms of a lot of things. A lot of projects had to kind of be postponed because of the fact that, yeah, especially the indie stuff, which I'm hoping to kind of kickstart next year. But yeah, it's been a lot of other things. A lot of, I think, arms have been used a lot because there's been a lot of bartan manjawing and cooking. But I look forward to kind of properly exercising and getting a little more fit. Although we've been eating all home stuff. So to the extent that I was cooking so much and I was taking such good videos of them that I started an Instagram channel called Matangi's Food Diary. So yeah, I decided to start putting stuff up before I deleted it out of my phone. So to that extent, so it has, like, I just was posting stuff and it has around 100 followers now. So I'm like, yay! So that's the amount of cooking I've been doing. So yeah, looking forward to doing very different things in 2021.
Wow, yeah, that was my next question. What are you looking forward to actually? So you have anything to add to that in 2021?
Besides travel and kickstarting projects that kind of had to be left behind, I think also the fact that this year has forced us to introspect on a lot of things that aren't necessary actually. I really felt that this year has been very good learning. I don't think the world has come together in such a way because I think a pandemic is probably once in 50 years, 100 years, 150 years. I think the world got to kind of do things that it never did. I think a lot of myths about many things were broken. So I think I would like to approach 2021 differently, not exactly the way I would have otherwise had it been a regular year. So yeah, besides traveling and starting projects and things like that, I would like to kind of more in terms of more personal things, in terms of how I want to approach things, how I want to invest time with people in giving back. I think all of that, I'd like to approach it more differently, more mindfully, so to speak, or invest in it more powerfully in that sense of the word. Less to do with ticking a box saying kar diya and release kar diya, but more in terms of the how of it, So, and also learning to kind of let go of stuff that I kind of realized it's okay to let go of. I think it was all in my imagination that this was very important. It wasn't. I think pandemic brought a lot of clarity on that front.
Nice. Okay. So we're going to talk a lot more about what you're doing about let go and teaching people about a few things that is important. Before we get there, so there are many facets of your life that is inspiring to all of us, right? And you are multi-potentialite. This is what I learned from you, so I'm going to use that anyway.
Yes, even I didn't know it was called that. Actually, this is from Emily Wapnick, and I remember her. I bumped into her TEDx this thing, and as you can see, there is a little bit of a book freak. So I in fact, one of her books is there at the back, and I I'd always felt that I could do something intensely, passionately for a very longish time, and by long I don't mean few months, I mean years. But then I need to move on. So I used to keep wondering, and then the world, especially in India, their conversation, I'm not sure if it's only an India thing, but the idea of ek cheez karo. Once you've found one thing, that's it. You keep going deeper into that. That's the expert way, I guess. And you keep growing roots and shoots in the same thing. I've always felt that I want to do other things. Mine's incidentally been around art, but then intensely doing something for a certain number of years, and then I want to change stuff. Then I want to do other things. Then I want to add distributaries to it. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do one thing fully in a certain way? And then I discovered Emily Wapnick, and then I realized there's a word for it called multi-potentialite, and it's the title of the whole thing was how to be everything. I was like, yeah, that sounded like me. And I realized there are many people like that who, and in the multi-potentialite world itself, there are a million varieties. So once you kind of find that kind of balance, then you can embrace yourself for being someone who likes to do more than one thing and probably gets bored or whose brain switches off if one does not get to do many things. So embracing that has allowed me not to feel like a freak. So I think once I embraced that, I was like, okay, this is me, and there are many people like me, and there are varieties in that also. And if I can embrace this, that maybe I will want to move on to something a little different after a certain point of time. So I can kind of witness under my nose when that line is sort of coming, where I will probably lose interest, or in the sense that whatever I wanted to absorb, I've done it. And while I'm at it, I know how intensely I can do something. So I will give myself credit for that, but I'm not going to beat myself over the fact that I want to move on to other things. So yeah, I've learned to embrace that. It took a while.
Awesome. And again, like I said, you wear multiple hats, you do multiple things, and you gave us a good summary of what this multi-potentialite is. Something that like I said, I learned from you, and I kind of relate to that. I want to get to a few things. So before we talk about you're a playback singer, you're a musicpreneur, you're a Coke studio artist, and you're doing all these mastermind classes and workshop now, right? Holistic vocalist. Before we get to that, if we can go back in time to your early days, what was it like growing up? What were your aspirations that time? Can we talk about that a little bit?
It definitely wasn't music. I can tell you that. A lot of people presume that people who become musicians were always dreaming of it since they were children. I wasn't. So I grew up mostly in Delhi. So my parents studied and grew up in Kolkata. I was born in Kolkata, but then we moved to Delhi very, very early on when I was a kid. So my entire nursery to class 12 is actually New Delhi. So I'm a Delhiite that way. I grew up in the streets of Karol Bagh and Paharganj. So if that kind of rings a bell. So that's the kind of music. So I grew up in a lot of Bollywood. So that's the kind of stuff that I grew up on. So, but mine was more like Lata Mangeshkar, Asha Bhosle ji, and it was more like, I was very partial to Asha ji. And then there is Mohammad Rafi and Kishore Kumar, and again, partial to Kishore Kumar. So that's the kind of music that I kind of grew up on, and super partial to a lot of the 60s, 70s, 80s music, largely. And we moved out of Delhi after I finished class 12, I did actually a city that I am in right now, which is Bangalore. I did 3 years of graduation here and then moved to Chennai because my parents had already moved. So I've kind of lived in different places. Of course, then after getting married, we've been here for almost 12, 13 years now. So it's like I've been in a few cities, and so I've kind of absorbed from those places as well. So although I'm a South Indian and Tamil is my mother tongue, that's not the language I really got to speak in Delhi. So it was all Hindi. I can of course understand parts of Punjabi. English and Hindi of course were my favorites. But in school I sang in the choir. but my training was Carnatic music completely. So, and then my dad introduced me to, so we used to have, of course, this is kind of giving away my age, which I don't have a problem with. We used to have VHS tapes at that time, and we had cassette tapes. There weren't even CDs. So I remember these VHS tapes that dad would bring, and I would see them so many times that the tape would come out. So, I mean, I was that kind of a this, and all that freakish, obsessive seeing that I was doing was all English. And this was all in quiet time. Like, mom didn't really know about the number of times I was listening to that music. So dad introduced me to all the Broadway stuff, all the musicals, which is where I realized later on in my 30s that all this stuff that I like about jazz and why it was comfortable for me, and I was scratching my head in terms of how is this comfortable for me at all? I have no training in, and I realized that it was from childhood. So you carry all that surprisingly, and it can come out at any point of time. So a lot of observations on that front. So a lot of stuff got embedded as a kid, and I'm actually living a lot of that stuff in my 30s and into my 40s. So I realized there is really no age limit to this. I've kind of given away my age, but that's okay. So, but I really felt that as a kid, it was very extreme. So the training, classical training was all Carnatic. The excited, loving, obsessive listening was all English on the sly. And because obviously we were in Delhi, I loved the Bollywood stuff and things like that. For competitions, I was singing bhajan. So this was a really crazy thing. And then I was part of the choir singing Hallelujah. So I kind of was a mixed up kid in that sense of the word. But that kind of is how I realized why there is so much of so many things in my life now, musically and otherwise. So it's this traditional South Indian family, largely speaks English and Hindi, speaks only Tamil at home, but then the playback thing was completely Tamil. So there you go. So it was like, it's all mixed up. But then that eclectic mix is, when I brand myself now over the last few years, it was a little more complicated for me because I'm kind of mixed up that way, but that's me. So I'm able to now bring that into my original music now. So interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Definitely interesting. And I like the fact that, see the way you brought it all together, that you had mixed up things during your growing up days, but all that has helped you, looking back now in retrospect, all that has helped you now, right? You realize that has been a part of your life, and that's what it was meant to be. That's why you're able to do these things, is what you're saying, right?
True. There were things that I kind of knew, like my first true love was never music, it was dance. Oh. My skill set for dance was almost zero. My skill set for music was obviously much greater. And then, of course, I got this Government of India scholarship. It was a very prestigious thing. A lot of people in my family have tried for it. I was the only one who got it. So it was in Carnatic music. So I was just waiting for it to get over so that I could, like, okay, now enough. So I never fell in love with it. I'm very grateful for the training and the foundation that it created. But had I kind of understood a lot of things that I understand now in the last 8 years, maybe I would have done it in reverse. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it, I would have just done it in reverse. I remember much later, like, trying to find a Carnatic music teacher in Delhi was like such a difficult thing because when you're on scholarship, you can't really learn from your parent. Ideally, it should be an external teacher. And then you have to send all these things in terms to the government saying, I'm doing this, etc., etc. And they call you in between to check if you're actually utilizing the scholarship and things like that. So izzat ka sawal ho jata hai. Like you wanna keep the scholarship for those 7 years. You don't want the government to say, not doing a good job taking it away. So you really want to do a good job to keep the scholarship, right? So I really felt that I kind of did that more out of fear because I didn't want to lose the scholarship. But it wasn't like I fell in love with it the way I fell in love with many other things later on. So Bharatanatyam actually is what I learned for quite a few years as a child. And then of course, mom pulled me out of Bharatanatyam. But it's amazing how I'm able to kind of bring that back. A lot of people have in fact asked me if I'm trained in Bharatanatyam and things like that. And only as a kid, I haven't done it in like 2 decades or two and a half decades. But I fell in love with temple jewelry at that point of time, and I was able to kind of work with a contemporary temple jewelry person and kind of bring that into my, like my Jimki, I'm not wearing it today, but is like a staple. It's there in my logo, it's there in many other things. So I realized that there are a lot of things that are, as a child, in fact, that whole love for English singing, I mean, I didn't start pursuing it till I was 37. So, but hey, I mean, you're trying to live those dreams. And hopefully the other part in terms of dancing, I'm really hoping that if not dancing, and definitely not Bharatanatyam, I'm hoping that in 2021, I'll be able to bring movement art back into my life. I haven't had the best of health in the last 8 years, but I'm really hoping that that can be incorporated back. better late than never.
Interesting, because some of this I didn't know as well, right? The dance part and those things are something.
Right, that was truly my true love. I
Yeah.
screamed and yelled and kicked that I didn't want to stop the dance. I wanted to stop the music, but not the dance. Mom was like, no, you're under scholarship and you're much better at that and dance. And that is actually true. It's definitely true. My skill sets weren't whatever. Of course, I have a sense of rhythm and things like that. But if you compare it to my ability to sing, it was diddly squat. So, I'm really hoping to bring back other stuff, movement art back into my life. I somehow felt that, which is why I said this whole pandemic lockdown has given a lot of time for solitude and introspection and to be able to think in terms of whatever. So the whole English singing thing is what I've been working on from my mid-30s. I said, after I lost my voice and I was trying to resurrect it, I was like, okay, if it's gone anyways, and I'm building it back, might as well do the thing that I really wanted to do. And then I went back into training. I sort of went underground and things like that. But it took quite some time. I think I'm resurrecting stuff that kind of I thought had died, and I realized it hadn't. So
yeah. I want to come to that part, what you spoke about, where you lost your voice. But before that, a quick glimpse about your musical journey with playback singing and Coke Studio. Let's talk a little about that before we come to the actual incident.
Right. So when I moved to Chennai, I was actually working in an advertising agency. So this is like really, really long ago. I'm talking about like 2000, 2001, that kind of thing. And for one of my own clients, when we were recording it was all late night stuff. There was an audiovisual or something. And we were working with these producers at that point in time, and we were short of a voice and we couldn't run anywhere. I said, don't worry, I'll go into the booth and I'll do something. My voice was rusty. I hadn't sung in a really long time. This wasn't like I kept up my training. And then the producer said, you have an interesting voice. Do you mind coming back tomorrow? And they kind of this was like, us zamane mein, it was very different. There were not too many studios, and like if your voice is being sampled, I didn't know what the heck that was, and things like that. So it kind of spread a little bit. It kind of moved around a little bit, and then one day I get a call while I was working at Mechanics at that point of time, and they said, "You want to come for a voice test?" I'm like, "What is that?" So it was like, they said, "No, you come and sing some of the lines. We'll see if your voice is suitable." I was like, "Okay." And I finished work at this time. Can I come in the evening? They said, "Yeah, you can come." And then they told me the name of the place. So I actually sang the lines of the song that they wanted me to sing. And then they called me back again, made me do it again. And then they said, "Okay, you're doing it." I'm like, "Who?" Okay. And then it landed up being another song in the same movie. And once the movie was released, there was another chota promo kind of song. So I had 2.5 songs in my very first film, very rare. So I was very fortunate that way. And then utne hi studios the. So when your voice is getting mixed masters, there will be a registry outside, physical registry. And they'll say, "This is an interesting voice. We're looking for a voice like this for this other movie, this director in that studio there across the road. Can you give me her number?" And they'll open and say, "Okay, this one sang this one. This is her number." So this is at that point of time. So there were no cell phones, there was no nothing. And then when we did get a cell phone, maybe around 2003 types, it was like a piece of brick. You could hit somebody with it. So it was that long black thing with one horrible antenna. It will go beep, beep, beep. So that's the one. So it's at that point of time. So they'll call you on the landline and check if you are free, and then they'll discuss fee and things like that and all of that. And one thing led to another, and within the first 3 years, I'd already sung 350 odd songs. So I was like, wow. And then television happened, not in Chennai, but in Sri Lanka. I did a show there, and they said, "She'll be interesting for this particular show, and do you want to buy?" I said, no, I can't anchor in Tamil. They said, no, we have faith in you. I said, you definitely seem to have more faith in me than I have in myself. So I did 3 years back to back of a show there, by which time people had kind of heard that she's been anchoring elsewhere. So maybe we can try her for this new program that's coming in. So a lot of doors open when you start singing playback. And if you're open to doing television and things like that. So then you start getting called for reality shows, you start mentoring, anchoring, judging, shows abroad, shows in India. So that it's like a ripple effect. I'll put it this way, I was very fortunate that ripple effect happened to me. I'm not saying because someone sang a song 100% everything will happen, but I was very fortunate that all of that happened. So I got to do that, and Coke Studio happened in 2011. And I was one of the few people who actually toured. And on the last day of the very last concert, I had an itch in my throat. 25 days later, I didn't have a voice. So that's the long story cut short.
Let's get to that now. That's the most important. That's where I think the whole new journey began for you, right? So you lost your
Yes.
voice during a show, and through the show you realized you had an itch in the throat, and then 25 days down the line you don't have a voice. That's when
Right.
you realize something is terribly wrong. Okay, and from there
Right.
on,
I was constantly going back and working on things, but I was constantly being put on antibiotics, which was not suiting me at all. So I think kind of contributed to things happening more quickly. And since I didn't know any better, and none of the stuff that I talk about these days, none of that stuff I knew myself. So there is something called an antibiotic reflux that can also happen. That because of the amount of antibiotics you're taking, that kind of causes a kind of cascading effect in your life. Later on, when I did find the right doctors, it was GERD. It's gastroesophageal reflux disorder. And what it feels like almost is like your esophagus has forgotten that it has to pump downwards instead of pumping upwards. So this feels like constant acid, and it kind of burns out your ability to be able to sing. So it's like, it was like that. I didn't have aphonia, meaning like I couldn't talk at all. Maybe 2 or 3 days, it was practically impossible to talk. But, and it wasn't even like a long thing because I found the solutions and I was very determined in terms of finding solutions. But even for those several months where I was recovering and figuring things out and I knew what GERD, then I just dove into research like a mad person. And figured out what it was, and then I was discovering one thing after the other that I didn't know, and I felt, oh, I should have known this, shouldn't I? Shouldn't I be knowing this? So then I realized that one can be very weird and cocky and silly about some things in terms of singing is only about producing sound, and except for going to party class or going for lessons, I will not learn anything or understand anything about the instrument, and a lot of these idiocies came out, which of course I had, which is what I share with everybody, saying, don't be me. Learn from the mistakes that I made so that you don't have to kind of go through that. That is a horrible phase to go through. And then later on, I had started kind of this thing. So I decided that since it had been anyway wiped out and I couldn't really sing, and when I did try and sing, I would need breaks every 10 minutes because it'll become after a point. So I need a break, I need a rest, I need to hydrate, and then I can sing one more song, etc. It's very difficult to do shows like that, but I have done shows like that in 2012. I've kind of told people that I'm recovering and you need to give me breathers. Luckily for me, what happened was these were the kind of shows where you anyway won't be asked to sing more than one song because the next act will come. So I got kind of this thing, but I did refuse stuff where I knew that I had to hold for a long time. So that became my thing, that I'm going to get to a point where I can do 80 to 90 minutes on my own without anybody at all, just me. Once I come on stage, I'm going to be on for 90 minutes, speaking and singing continuously. So that sort of became and all the research and the work and the training that I did was to be able to do that. So I made vigorous notes. I worked with these different people. 2013, I started having arm issues. I couldn't move. So I started discovering muscular disorder. I was in constant pain, chronic pain. That didn't go away till almost 2018. So yeah. So when you met me in 2018 was the time when that pain was subsiding. So I'd worked with. So all these people that I have met is because of, I think, a deep determination to find solutions. But while I was at it, I really felt that why should I be the only person to know this? I'm sure people suffer and struggle with this and don't want to talk about it. I think that was the funniest part for me. The people don't want to talk about it. There is so much shame and pain surrounding it, which is true. The pain part I get. But it happens to everybody. It's not like it doesn't. So once you start understanding the root causes and how lifestyle can kind of start fixing those things, then you can start looking at it. But then you may also be prone or inclined to getting certain things because things don't suit you and you haven't really done the inward work. So like too many things started coming together. I'm very grateful for the vocal loss. And I thought life would have gone in a totally different direction. And I'm very glad it went in that direction. So yeah, that's a very long answer to a short question.
No, absolutely what was required. We needed that information. But see, you acknowledge the fact that this helped you look at a different side to it. But what I'm intrigued by is, one thing is you went through this, you recovered, you understood a lot of nuances of this, but you could have always gone back to the career. Now you could have done a lot better. While you're doing that, you also started, what pushed you into actually helping people out? That's a different thing. That is something that's what I rarely see, right? Now, people are going through something, they have a problem, they recover, and then they start realizing a lot of things and they move on. But you have chosen another path of helping people, like you said, the pain and shame, right? People don't come out of the closet, and you are going to break that, and you do a lot of other things. So I want to touch upon that. I want to emphasize that, which is for me the most inspiring part about you. How did it all start? Why did you think of helping out people while you're doing the other things as well? You're in a good spot.
actually I started doing my own material in 2013. So I knew that things were progressing in a different way. And I wasn't really doing as much playback to begin with. See, in terms of TV shows, etc., yeah, that's true. Playback is a very different kind of thing. You need to be physically present and things like that, etc., etc. You can kind of work on getting other work and things like that. But somewhere I felt that, I don't know, I felt that maybe there were other things to do. Maybe being a multi-potentialite helps in this way. Like you don't mind moving on to other different things, irrespective of what it means in terms of, and to be honest, I have never been particularly enamored by the spotlight. So that is another thing. I am quite happy in, like, I want to be, in Tamil we call it Kodali Murchi, where your hair is not really done. It's like an ugly looking knot and my Hawaii chappals and dirty t-shirt and shorts and run around here and there without being recognized. I quite like that. I like anonymity. I am never really related to fame as much in terms of, I need to be, which is why my social presence is also like, okay, I want to share this and I'll share and that's it. So I have never been the kind of person who has really felt that people need to be acknowledging me or need to be whatever, things like that. What I have been driven by is if I can be of service and I can be of help. That is, I think, a much deeper rooted sentiment, so to speak. Also the fact that in 2000, I started practicing Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism. So this is 20 years now. So a large part of my belief systems are based on the Daishonin Buddhism and teachings of my mentor, Daisaku Ikeda. There's a photograph here, but I can't show it to you right now. I have to tilt the camera. So I think in the last 20 years, a lot of it has been shaped by this philosophy. And a lot of it is rooted in practicing for oneself and for others simultaneously. So I've always felt that in everything that I do, while I'm trying to find solutions for myself, since it's been 20 years, over many years, I think you start developing the mindset of, can this help someone else also? It's like a natural thing that kind of happens. Sometimes it may not happen in the sense like, I want 1 million people to be helped with this. But if it can, great. Otherwise, if I can touch 2 lives, 4 lives, 10 lives, I'm good with it. So that was also the sentiment behind, I think, writing my own material. I think a large part of it was like when I do release my material or when I was performing it and things like that. I know there are a lot of people who don't want to do that or do their own thing because they feel they're too old. Like after you're 35, 37, like once you turn 40, तब तो लाइफ ही मतलब बर्बाद हो गई. इसके बाद तो आपको रिटायर हो जाना चाहिए. So most of the good stuff I started to do was only after 40. So I really felt that even if it's just for maybe one person or 2 people feeling they don't want to give up on their stuff, maybe just for that I should work on this and progress. And also the fact that considering the amount of research and study that I do in so many things which I share in my masterminds and things like that, I strongly do believe, and I've observed this over several years, that any unexpressed or repressed creativity of any kind is not benign, it is toxic. It starts affecting you in many ways, health-wise and otherwise. I've seen a lot of cranky people because they never got to express. It's not about becoming famous with it or kind of making money with it. Like I always feel that what is the biggest regret? So I remember this Lady Gaga interview and they asked, what is your biggest fear in life? And she said, when I'm dead, I will still have music and things to share. I was like, that is true. That is so true. Our biggest regret is not because we didn't make pots of money or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, I didn't say what I wanted to say. I had a voice, but I didn't express it. I had an idea, even if it failed, even if it doesn't take off or whatever it may be, I did everything that I could. Like everything that I had to give, I gave. I expressed, I shared. I think I definitely function like that because I don't want to be living in regret in terms of, I have no issues with the fact that it fails and nobody saw it, it'll download nahi hua. Like next year, I'm probably going to put out videos of me trying to dance or move or whatever. Even if it looks totally shabby, I'm okay with it. I'll delete the video later on, but I don't want to not. My only concern, I think right now was, I've worked very hard on my health over the last 8 years. I don't want to do something kind of foolish, which will be lack of wisdom, where I kind of get back pain that I've worked very hard on fixing. But except for that, this whole thing, log kya kahenge, this and that, I think once you turn 40, I think that is like some liberation happens, man. I don't know what. Jo bhi kahenge, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying, and I know.
So I think this whole thing, like one of the lines that my mentor would talk about is like life really begins at 40. You're kind of creating all those things in your 20s and 30s. I really didn't understand it at that point in time, but I do understand it now. It is quite liberating actually. 40s are very liberating, I'd like to say.
Which brings me to the point now, whatever you said. So tell us what all you do now. I kind of know, but I want people listening to know exactly what all you do right now.
Things have changed because of the lockdown. I do a lot of stuff that I wasn't doing in the last 10 years now. But hopefully when things do. So right now in terms of kind of like this year, since I do these things in January, you were at my workshop in January, and I don't know if I will do one now because I like to do the physical one, because the digital ones don't somehow for me have the same energy. But I may decide to do something else altogether, or completely decide to, again, the multi-potentialite in me says, think of 2021 completely differently, even for holistic vocalists. So I might decide to completely turn things around. I have been seriously blogging and putting stuff up on my holistic vocalist website. I have a blogging section there. I recreated the whole website and everything in 2019. I redid the whole thing again in 2020 to kind of make it as useful as possible in terms of resources. People still continue to do one-on-ones with me. I haven't started a mastermind this year. I wound up my second batch of mastermind end of last year. This year, I wanted to focus on other things to kind of understand if I can relook at things for holistic vocalists. One-on-ones continued. People who wanted to work with me one-on-one, that continued. And that can happen at any point of time. I did a trial run in 2018 for a program called What's Your Signature Sound, which was based on my own kind of whatever. That is something I might want to revive next year. So I'm not truly kind of committing to anything right now. Definitely will whoever wants to work with me one-on-one, always open to that. But everything else, I'm willing to relook at things in terms of holistic vocalists. But I will continue to blog vigorously in terms of, because it's easier for me to support people in that sense of the word. I have a private WhatsApp group, which you're also part of. So I keep putting stuff up there, and then other people who keep sharing things, anything that's going on sale, any new video that's come that clarifies things, me connecting people to people, that still continues. And in terms of my own writing and things like that, I'm actually working with a mentor from New Zealand, trying to kind of rework something which I've been procrastinating on. Interestingly, the song is called Mr. Procrastination. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to working with her this year and kind of bringing it to fruition. So let's see what happens. I'm not kind of fixating on ye wo jana chahiye nahi, or this has to happen in a certain way. Like you, I am particular, or like me, you are particular, whichever way it goes. Yes, I have been able to work a lot on my perfectionism issues, because I really felt that it was more about other people than it was about me. And I think I'm embracing the ability to look like a fool or do something very badly to begin with, because I know it'll only get better over time. So yeah, so like hoping to do new things next year. So, and hopefully more new music coming out, whether I decide to record it and put it up on iTunes and Spotify and blah, blah things. That part I don't know. Would I like to do it? Yes. But definitely creating more projects. And if I can collaborate with people, that is something I would like to kickstart. Because Jan, Feb, March, I was actually working on that, and that kind of came to a grinding halt. I'd like to resume that next year. So yeah, so let's see what happens.
Okay, so for people who are listening in, we'll provide some of these links in the description about Holistic Vocalist Mastermind and her blogs and Insta, I guess. A lot of description will be there. And before we leave, any parting thoughts, Maja? Actually, whatever you said as though I've heard this from you before, a lot of things, again, they are kind of reiterating facts for me. So I want to hear if there are any parting thoughts from your side for people listening in, any advices, anything that you want to say as parting thoughts.
I would say start 2021 as a refreshed note. I would say learn from 2020 because I think there were a lot of precious lessons to learn. I think it allowed us more than anything else to come together as one world, because like I said, when do we get to see a pandemic, which kind of is there across the world? Maybe 50 years, 100 years, it's a once in a lifetime thing. And there are lessons to be learned, and we are poorer for it if we don't learn them. I also feel that when people do get together next year, I think we will really relish and cherish the getting together at all, because that's become almost zero now. I think we're able to kind of realize the importance of physical contact and human relationships and actually speaking to another human being. Yeah, and I really feel that next year is like a restart, a refresher, and not to kind of live in the past and actually kind of reset and begin anew is what I would definitely say. And like I always say, like my mission statement is dare to be you unlimited. I always keep saying that because I think it takes great courage to be authentically, unequivocally, unabashedly you. But that is what we must be, because we are not here to be clones of each other, and the world would be poorer for it. And if you're an artist, please scratch the itch in the right way. If you're not an artist, and even if you're not going to make money out of it, if it's not going to be a full-time thing, even if you don't see fame on the cards and things like that, whether it's singing, dancing, acting, poetry writing, whatever it is, do your thing. Do not let it be, because your life will be richer for it. And even if you're not touching 1 million hearts and changing multiple lives, not only will you do something for yourself, you never know who might actually, I don't know, who might be touched or motivated, or who might see a shift in their lives because of that one piece of art that you created. So I would say, don't hold back, don't hesitate, and go for it in 2021 in whatever way that you think you can. And FEAR, I love this acronym, which is false evidence appearing real, but it really appears real, and then we kind of act based on that. But I would just really say, let go of the fear and really allow yourself to bloom in full form and truly believe in the fact that your life is unlimited. So that would be my parting words.
Wonderful, so nice. I'm just like you said, you never know whose heart you touch, what difference you make, and I'm sure people listening to this, I'm sure you'll make a difference to a lot of people as well, especially given the time that we are coming out with this video, starting off with 2021. Let's hope that people are inspired and they start scratching the itch in the right way.
Yes.
And thank you so much, Maja. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the wonderful words of inspiration. And
my pleasure.
I personally also selfishly hope to start the year with you again. For the last 3 years, I started with
No, incidentally, you started like this, which is very good.
I know, I was about to say that. So this year anyway started with
4 times in a row.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm glad about it, and I'll talk to you more again offline.
Absolutely. Do that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
See you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.